Fire, they said BTS was over. Then Jimin, Jungkook, and J-Hope shocked the world. YouTube script 3000 words English. Clapperboard hook, midnight to 0:45. Dramatic music plays. Quick cut montage of sold-out stadiums, screaming crowds, BTS on stage. Let me take you back to a moment the internet will never forget. It was 2022. BTS, the biggest music act on the planet, stood in front of cameras and announced a hiatus. No more group music. No more world tours. Just silence. Social media exploded. Fans were in tears. Critics smirked. And the headlines? Oh, the headlines were brutal. Is K-pop's biggest empire finally crumbling? BTS, the end of an era. Can BTS survive a military-induced break? They were called irrelevant, forgotten, done. But here's the thing about BTS, and more specifically about Jimin, Jungkook, and J-Hope. They don't just survive silence. They use it. And what happened next? It didn't just silence the doubters. It broke the entire music world. Stay with me, because this story is absolutely wild. Open Book Section 1. The beginning of the end, 0:45 to 3 o'clock. To understand how BTS shocked the world, you need to understand what everyone was saying when the hiatus began. In June 2022, at their annual Festa celebration, BTS gathered, tears in their eyes, and told ARMY they needed time. Individual time, personal time, military time. South Korea has mandatory military service for all able-bodied men. No exceptions, not even for 7 of the most famous human beings alive. Jimin was first. He enlisted in December 2022, setting off a domino effect that would keep members cycling in and out of service for nearly 3 years. J-Hope followed in April 2023, then Suga, then RM and V in December 2023. Then, in the move that hit ARMY the hardest, Jimin and Jungkook enlisted together, completing their service on June 10th and 11th, 2025. For a group that had released music almost nonstop since 2013, winning Grammy nominations, breaking Billboard records, selling out stadiums on every continent, this felt seismic. The message boards were savage. Music industry insiders speculated openly that BTS might never truly return. The cultural window might close. The moment might pass. But what nobody predicted, the individual chapters that Jimin, Jungkook, and J-Hope were about to write. Chapters so extraordinary that they didn't just keep BTS alive in people's hearts. They rewrote what a solo K-pop career could look like. Glowing Stars Section 2. J-Hope, the trailblazer who wouldn't wait, 3 to 7 o'clock. Let's start with the man who set the tone for everything that followed. Jung Hoseok, J-Hope. When BTS went on hiatus, J-Hope didn't waste a single second. He became the first BTS member to drop a solo album, Jack in the Box, in July 2022, a raw, experimental, genre-defying record that shocked fans who expected something safe and commercial. This was not the J-Hope of Chicken Noodle Soup. This was something darker, more personal, more brave. Then came the moment that made the whole world pay attention. Lollapalooza 2022, Chicago, the biggest music festival in North America. J-Hope became the first South Korean artist to headline Lollapalooza. Not perform, not appear as a guest. Headline. He stood on that main stage in front of tens of thousands of music fans, most of whom had never attended a BTS concert, and delivered a performance so electric, so commanding, that the festival's own social media couldn't stop talking about it. He proved something that night. BTS members weren't just K-pop stars. They were global entertainers, full stop. Then, just before his April 2023 military enlistment, he dropped the heartfelt single On the Street, a collaboration with J. Cole. J. Cole, one of the most respected names in hip-hop. The two of them standing side by side sent a message louder than any chart position. J-Hope belonged in any room, with any artist, on any stage. He enlisted, and the world waited. When J-Hope was discharged in October 2024, he came back with a hunger that felt almost supernatural. In March 2024, while still serving, his EP Hope on the Street Volume 1 had already dropped, debuting at number 5 on the Billboard 200. Then came more collaborations, more milestones. Sweet Dreams with Miguel, It hit number 1 on Billboard's digital song sales chart in March 2025, his first ever chart topper as a solo artist. Then came Mona Lisa, which debuted at number 65 on the Hot 100, giving J-Hope his 7th solo entry on the chart and tying him with Jungkook as the K-pop soloist with the most Hot 100 entries ever. And then, and this is where it gets absolutely insane, J-Hope launched his first ever solo world tour. Hope on the stage, 33 shows, North America and Asia. Over 504,000 fans attended. The box office, $84.7 million. Let that sink in. A solo K-pop artist, $84.7 million in ticket sales, selling out arenas in Brooklyn, Chicago, Los Angeles, and San Antonio. Not as a member of BTS, as himself. They said he couldn't do it without the group. The numbers said otherwise. Purple Heart Section 3, Jungkook, the golden magne who went platinum, 7 to 11 o'clock. Slightly emotional, building intensity. Now let's talk about the youngest member, the one they call the golden magne, the one fans always worried would struggle most without the protection of 6 older brothers around him. Jungkook didn't just survive solo life. He dominated it. In November 2023, Jungkook released Golden, his debut solo album. And what happened? The album debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200. Number 1. He became the first BTS member to debut a solo album at the top of that chart. Not second, not third, number 1. The lead single Standing Next to You was everywhere. It felt like a love letter to ARMY while simultaneously announcing to the mainstream that Jungkook was here, he was serious, and he wasn't going anywhere. Meanwhile, 7, with Lado, became one of the most streamed songs of 2023. At the 2024 Billboard Music Awards, Jungkook won Top Global K-Pop Song for Standing Next to You and Top K-Pop Album for Golden. The trophies piled up. The streams climbed. The world could not get enough. And here's the thing that made it all so compelling. Jungkook didn't try to be someone else. He didn't chase trends or manufacture a fake image. He was vulnerable. He was joyful. He was himself, fully, unapologetically, in every frame and every note. He submitted Golden for Grammy consideration in both Album of the Year and Best Pop Vocal Album categories. Multiple singles from the album were considered for Record of the Year, Song of the Year, and Best Pop Solo Performance. And then he enlisted. June 2025, right on schedule. But even during his service, the records kept coming. The streams kept climbing. The legacy of Golden kept growing. When Jungkook stepped back into civilian life in mid-2025, he wasn't returning as the youngest member of a famous group. He was returning as one of the most decorated solo artists of his generation. Microphone Section 4. Jimin, the artist who redefined the word milestone, 11 to 1530. Passionate, awestruck tone. And now, the one, the moment you've probably been waiting for. Park Jimin. Of all the BTS members, Jimin's solo era may be the most statistically staggering chapter in K-pop history. Not because it was expected, but because of just how relentlessly, record-shatteringly unexpected it was. In March 2023, Jimin released Face, his first solo album. The title track, Like Crazy, debuted at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. He became the first South Korean solo artist to debut at number 1 on the Hot 100. Full stop. A ceiling shattered. A door kicked open. But Jimin wasn't done. In July 2024, right before his own military enlistment, he released his second solo album, Muse. The lead single who topped both the Billboard Global 200 and the Global XL US chart. Another number 1. Another record. Muse surpassed 1 billion streams on Spotify. But here's what makes that truly jaw-dropping. Face had already crossed the billion stream mark before Muse even arrived. That means Jimin became the first K-pop solo artist in history to have 2 albums achieve 1 billion Spotify streams. 2 albums, both over 1 billion streams. He submitted Muse for both Album of the Year and Best Pop Vocal Album at the 2025 Grammy Awards. As of early 2025, he had accumulated an estimated 115 awards in his solo career alone. 115. And through all of it, the chart records, the streaming milestones, the Grammy submissions, Jimin did something else that made ARMY fall even deeper in love with him. He stayed human. He was transparent about the pressure. He cried with fans on live streams. He shared his fears and his gratitude in equal measure. In November 2025, just weeks before the world was about to change again, Jimin appeared on a live stream. His military service now complete, and made an announcement that broke the internet. "Guys, we just finished recording." He paused. "It can come out next spring. Seeing you today, I really feel like promoting our music." Army collectively lost their minds. Rocket Section 5, The Reunion, and the return that shook the planet, 1530 to 2000 hours. Emotional, cinematic. Let's set the scene. June 2025. The last members, Jimin, Jungkook, RM, and V, complete their military service within days of each other. For the first time since 2019, all 7 members of BTS were free. Actually free. And what did they do? They went to Los Angeles. All 7 of them rented a house and got to work. For 2 months, they lived together, ate together, trained together in the mornings, and headed to the studio every afternoon, 6 days a week. RM described the schedule to GQ as working like businessmen. "It felt," he said, "like being trainees again. Except this time, they had years of stadium tours and billions of streams behind them." Then came July 1st, 2025, a Weverse live stream. All 7 members, side by side, for the first time in nearly 3 years. 7.3 million fans tuned in simultaneously. 7 million people, at once, for a live stream. And BTS looked into that camera and said, "We'll be releasing a new BTS album in the spring of next year. Starting in July, all 7 of us will begin working closely together on new music. Since it will be a group album, it will reflect each member's thoughts and ideas. We're also planning a world tour alongside the new album. We'll be visiting fans all around the world, so we hope you're as excited as we are." The internet detonated. On January 1st, 2026, Bigot Music posted a single line on social media. March 20th comeback confirmed. On January 16th, the album's name was revealed, Arirang, named after a centuries-old Korean folk song, a melody that has carried the emotions of separation, longing, and reunion across generations of Korean people. The choice was deliberate, profound, deeply personal, because that's exactly what BTS had been living for the past 3 years: separation, longing, and now, finally, reunion. Globe showing Europe Africa Section 6, March 20th to 21st, 2026, the night the world watched, 2000 hours to 2400 hours. Powerful, triumphant. March 20th, 2026. Arirang was released. The album broke records before the day was over. Pre-orders had already exceeded projections by miles. Every streaming platform buckled under the traffic. Social media trends around the world were overtaken by 7 letters, ARING. And then came March 21st. BTS The Comeback Live Arirang. Gwangwon Square, Seoul, South Korea. In front of Gyeongbokgung Palace, the historic gateway of the Joseon dynasty, the ceremonial heart of Korea itself. This wasn't a stadium show. This was a statement. Up to 260,000 fans flooded the streets of central Seoul. The South Korean government issued a caution-level crisis alert due to the scale of the gathering. Security was unprecedented. Road closures, police units, designated fan sections, stretching blocks in every direction. And at home, more than 190 countries watched on Netflix. Directed by Hamish Hamilton, the man who has directed every Super Bowl halftime show since 2010. The concert used a 360-degree camera setup designed to make every single person watching from their living room feel like they were standing in that square. BTS walked toward the stage down the King's Road, the historic ceremonial path of the Joseon dynasty, dressed in black and white looks by Korean designer Songzeo. The concert opened with Body to Body, the first track from Arirang. The crowd roared. Then came Butter, then Dynamite. The old anthems, side by side with the new, proving that for BTS, the past and the future have always been one continuous story. About 104,000 fans attended in person. The concert ran for 1 hour. Analysts estimated the full comeback, tour, album, merchandise could generate at least $1.93 billion in revenue, numbers that put them in direct competition with Taylor Swift's Eras Tour. Numbers that hadn't been seen since BTS themselves. On March 27th, Netflix released the documentary, BTS, The Return, and the world officially ran out of ways to say they were surprised. Direct hit Section 7, the world tour and what it all means, 2400 hours, 27:00. Reflective, inspiring. The Arirang World Tour kicked off on April 9th, 2026. 82 shows, 34 regions, spanning every continent on Earth. Seoul, Tokyo, Busan, Kaohsiung, Bangkok, Kuala Lumpur, Singapore, Jakarta, Hong Kong, Manila, Bogota, Lima, Santiago, Sao Paulo, and more cities still to come through 2027. Every single announced show sold out. Let that be your answer to anyone who ever asked. Can BTS still do it after the military? Yes, they can, and then some. But let's take a step back from the numbers, because the numbers, as staggering as they are, aren't really the point. The real story of Jimin, Jungkook, and Jhope, and of BTS as a whole, is a story about what you do with silence. When the world stops watching, do you disappear, or do you grow? Jhope chose to grow. He came back with a world tour, a #1 single, and a legacy as one of the most versatile performer musicians of his generation. Jungkook chose to grow. He debuted at #1, broke records, and proved that the Golden Magne could carry the weight of a career entirely on his own shoulders. Jimin chose to grow. He shattered records that didn't even have a ceiling to break, becoming a billion-stream artist twice over before most people had even heard the word muse. And together they came back not as the group they were in 2022, but as something bigger, something more mature. 7 individuals who had each found themselves in the years apart, and who were now choosing, deliberately, to come back together. Suga said it best when he reflected on the military years. Before, I had only been racing forward without looking back on myself. But this time gave me the opportunity to reflect on myself once again. That reflection, that intentionality, that willingness to sit with the silence and let it shape you. That's what separates BTS from every other act in music history. And arrow outro, 27:00, 28:30. Direct to camera, conversational. So the next time someone tells you BTS is over, or that your favorite artist has peaked, remember this story. Remember Jhope headlining Lollapalooza with no one watching his back but himself. Remember Jungkook standing on top of the Billboard 200 with his debut album. Remember Jimin breaking streaming records that nobody thought were even possible. And remember March 21st, 2026, when 104,000 people stood in the shadow of Gyeongbokgung Palace, and 190 countries watched on Netflix as 7 young men from South Korea walked back down the King's Road and reminded the entire world exactly what they are capable of. They didn't just survive the hiatus. They used it. And honestly, the world is better for it. If you're new here, welcome to the chaos, as they say. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and drop a purple heart in the comments if you're a proud member of ARMY. Let me know, what was your favorite BTS solo moment from the hiatus era? I'll see you in the next one. Borahi, purple heart, end card, subscribe button, watch next, playlist like, and comment CTA. Script word count, 50 words estimated video runtime, 25 to 30 minute style, energetic documentary / fan commentary YouTube format.